Everybody's ready? We'll call the meeting to order with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. With that said, we're looking for a time for any public comment. No? All right, we'll move on to the agenda. Looking for a motion. Set the agenda.
Move to approve the March 19th board meeting agenda, Mr. Chair.
Motion made by Paul,
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
second by Steve. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, as a reminder, because Commissioner Bredesen is remote, must be done by roll call.
Oh, that's right. Forgot. Roll call.
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein.
Yes. All right. Roll call today. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For today's consent agenda, we have the approval of the March 5th board meeting minutes, approval of Health and Human Services County and Hospital accounts payable, approval of the appointment of Mary Ellen Wells as the Chief Executive Officer of the Meeker Hospital and Clinics, approval of the reappointment of Kaisa Olson, John Sprider, and Will Dolan to the Hospital Board, approval of the 2024 Coronas Regional Park House Rental Lease Agreement, approval of the reappointment of Jay Hedke to the Middle Fork Crow River Watershed Board, approval of the renewal of consumption and display permit for Riverside Store and Tavern, approval of quote from Marco Technologies for Duo Multi-Factor Authentication. That's the consent agenda. I do want to note that there was one small correction on the hospital board appointment. John Sprider starting his fourth term and not his third.
Okay.
It was listed in the RBA.
Thank you, Andrew.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made by Paul,
I'll second that.
second by Julie. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Did I miss the payables?
It's number 3, or C,
Is it?
or I'm sorry. no,
Oh,
I'm
B,
sorry,
letter
I'm
B.
sorry,
All right, there it is. I was looking for the boxed line. All right. And I had a question in the payables. Is Barb in here? Hildy Incorporated actuary and valuation. I just thought it out as me as something.
Do the projections for long-term items such as like para, so we
Oh.
have used them for a number of years.
Okay.
So the
this is-
actuarial assignments for the financial system.
Okay, all right, I just, one of them that wasn't a regular.
Julie had asked that same question.
All right,
And Mr. Chair,
Yep.
Andrew and I had discussed it. Did the payables seem less, or was that just the grand total amount?
that's a good thing.
I know it's a good thing, I'm saying that,
Sure, we forgot something.
but it did seem like it was,
Smaller batch,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
dollar-wise maybe, you did with,
Hitting the right spot of the cycle, I guess.
well, either
Yeah.
that or
Yeah.
with less construction or something.
Okay.
I didn't see anything unusual.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
Andrew, the rental agreement on this house, is this the same, these are the same people that we've
Yes,
had?
it's a
How long
continuing,
have they been? A
at
while?
least 10 years.
For some reason, I didn't recognize him, so it must have been me then, I didn't recognize the name. Thank you.
Any other questions? With that said, we'll have the roll call vote on them.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes,
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
The levity never.
You're going through that time a little later. Because you're about 14, 15 when that happens. With that said, consent agenda passes.
and just a note, I'm not related to Bob and Rebecca Schmidt on the Coronas,
Oh,
no relation.
I know. With that said, we'll segue into Mary Ellen Wells.
Thanks for that light moment.
Yeah.
It was unintentional, believe me.
I thought you might have been joking about.
I know. This is a positive thing.
Well, good morning.
You could have found the fountain of youth, maybe.
Good morning. I'm here to report on how the hospital is doing over the past couple of months, and I want to, in your packet were the December the year-end financials, and I just want to reiterate, in the minutes from the December meeting, I want to reiterate the performance of the hospital in light of what's going on in healthcare in general. And I point out that we had a speaker from the Minnesota Hospital Association, and the board members know this as well, that many, many hospitals in Minnesota and literally across the country are not faring so well financially. And so in light of that, I have to say that even though we came in behind budget, when you look at our performance from the prior year, we ended the year in a very positive note. We made a slight profit, even though we are not a for-profit entity. We do need to make a profit to be able to fund our depreciation and invest in our future. So I just want to point out that a couple of things of note that made this possible. We really doubled down, if you will, and you all know Nicole Signer, and she has moved on, although she is providing some interim financial leadership for us. We really doubled down last year on collections, and you can see that in our balance sheet we had really a $3 million turnaround in our accounts receivables, and our days cash on hand is now approaching a healthier, let's just say, position. So I think you can, I never want to promise, because you never know what's going to happen, but I think you can be more comfortable now with the position of the hospital at the present time. I'm going to stop there. One more, just that the expenses are higher, you'll note, for the year end, and that is largely due to the travelers, the contract employees we've had to bring in. And that's, again, not unusual in healthcare. In many hospitals and clinics across the country are seeing the need to bring in contract help to supplement the staff. We're seeing less and less of that this year. Our goal is to minimize that and really focus on reducing turnover and keeping our employees. So far, so good. The current year is going pretty well.
All right. Any questions for Mary Ellen?
Have you put the ad out for the CFO? Where are we with the CFO?
I'm sorry?
The CFO search.
Yeah, we're about to get started with that, and I wanted to get through this cycle first.
Okay.
And have some permanence before we really start to advertise and
Good.
do with the search.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, welcome. We hope you're here for as long as you wish to be, and we really do appreciate what you do at the hospital.
Well, I have to say, I was surprised but I've really come to really love the people there and the mission and what's happening here. And I've known Litchfield from, living in Annandale and being involved in community hospitals throughout the state. I've known about Litchfield, but now that I've experienced it, it's tremendous. Meeker County's tremendous.
Yes, welcome. This was a very welcome surprise for me when I heard this, so it's going to be great. Thank you.
Sure. Any questions?
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Mary Ellen. Like everybody said, welcome aboard.
Thank you very
Hopefully
much.
we continue on.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on. Phil.
Good morning. Bill Schmalz, Public Works Director. One item for consideration this morning. We recently advertised and opened bids for our 2024 paving contract. Got 4 bids on the work. The work includes 2 different roads. One of them is our Casat 2 from Trunk Highway 24 in Forest City up to a few miles north, about 5 miles. And that one is going to be a reclaim in town. If anyone gets on 2 in Forest City, it's in pretty rough shape. And then about from the bridge north, there'll be an overlay and a pavement widening project. The
How far north of the bridge?
It's 5 miles, 360th Street.
Oh, okay, township line.
And that'll tie into the 2019 paving project that we completed up there.
Yep.
So then all of 2 should be pretty fresh.
But, yeah, it'd be 2 miles into Forest Prairie Township, 360.
Sounds about right. And then the Casat 34 work, that's kind of here in town, I'd call it, between Trunk Highway 12 and 24. That road, if you're familiar with it, it's a stout road, but it's extremely rough. The ride is poor. So we're trying something that we haven't done in Meeker County before. It's a micro mill process, kind of buzz off the high spots, put a good profile on it, and then come back with a overlay to fill in the low spots, and then a wear course to top it all off. It should be a nice road when we're done. And that's about 1.7 miles long. The total between the 2 projects is about 1.642 million. Bids were pretty competitive. I was hoping to see a little bit of a dip in prices compared to what we've seen the last couple of years, but we're still trending upwards.
What's that mean when you buzz off the high? Are you milling it?
Yep, micro mill process. So
Okay.
it's like a mill head with smaller teeth than what you traditionally see, and they'll follow a ski typically to try and improve the ride before you come back and put pavement on top.
Gotcha.
They won't mill off much, the 2 inches or less.
Oh, okay.
So, Mr. Chair, so
Yes, sir.
it shaves the tar, I'm not,
Yep.
I wondered that too, so it just shaves it off?
Yep.
A couple inches? And what's the life on that then, when you,
I mean, the overlay is more of your improved product that you put life on. The mill is really just to help improve the ride, so you have a better starting point for
okay,
the paving.
so it's just not as,
But it is still what I'd say is just an overlay project, so it's not gonna be a 30 years and we'll come back later. It's gonna need attention in, 15 years, I would estimate.
so budget-wise, it's a better thing to do for right now?
Right now, it depends on the age and the
So
condition
it's
of
a
the
lot of
pavement.
money either way, I guess.
It is, but it's less than half the price of a full
Yeah.
reclaim. It's not, when I say the road is stout, it's in pretty good shape. It's a strong road, it's built heavy, it's just got really poor ride.
Okay,
Movements that are happening at the cracks.
thank you.
Mr. Chair. When you say built heavy, is it a 10-ton road or,
It's 10 ton, yes,
Yeah.
it exceeds 10 ton design.
okay,
And
cause that,
after we overlay it, it'll be even heavier.
yeah, cause it gets a lot of rumbling, big traffic down that road.
It does. And it's something that I've been getting calls about since I got here. It's been on the list to get to, but we've been trying to address some of our roads that are flying apart before the ones that are poor riding.
How many inches is a 10-ton road just for,
It depends on what's under the gravel, how
Gotcha.
much gravel's there, and how much pavement's there.
it's all about that?
I couldn't tell you exactly what's in that section right now.
Okay.
34 pretty well, is the sub base on that road pretty good on that stretch?
I believe so. If I remember right, there's sand under so there's your clay base, and then sand, then gravel, then pavement, which is kind of that's a beefier design than most of our roads.
Okay. And that's wear coat, is that the same one they used on 22 North between Eden Valley? That's a real thin coat on 22 North here.
This will be an overlay after the micro mill, comparable to what we're doing on 2 and what we
Okay.
did on 4 last year. So it's
Okay, so it's a thick,
the blade level, which is kind of thin, just filling in the low spots that are left after the mill, and then an 1.5 inch overlay to top
Okay.
it all off.
okay, then it's different than that one.
So the road will go up 1.5 inches, 2
Yeah,
inches.
okay, all right.
Mr. Chair, one last question. When I looked at this too, I saw that big variance on the bottom 2 bidders, almost 25% on the 123 and the other. But it does seem kinda like there's a rollover, cause, they'll get one and the next one they bid far more competitively. Is that
I
kinda
think-
what's happening?
I think contractors anywhere and in our area, they're looking at their schedule, and that factors into their price. If this job may not fit their schedule the best, or they don't have a pit that's close to those roads,
Okay,
I think that's what pushes things around more than anything else.
okay, that makes sense.
All right. Any other questions for Phil on this? Otherwise, I'll be looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will move to award 2024 paving contract, which includes SAP 047-602-014 and SAP 047-634-016 to Knife River of Sauk Rapids, Minnesota, for an estimated total of $1,642,749.48.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I will second that motion.
Motion by Steve, second by Paul. Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen?
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein?
Yes. All right, moving on.
Thank you. And just a side note, if you're not watching the weather, you maybe should.
Yeah.
Make an appearance here, and we expect it to be kind of ugly. Spring snows are always a mess because the gravel shoulders, the gravel roads, everything sticks to the snow, and you end up with a big dirty snowball when you plow it off.
When can I expect this?
When?
Sunday,
How
is-
soon?
Thursday a little and Sunday a lot.
Sunday, Monday, I think is the worst, yeah.
Thank you.
This time of year, hopefully it's not accurate.
Lasting. Oh, I remember having snow on Easter more than once.
Well, the state boys basketball tournament.
That's true too. That's usually good for a snowstorm.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. All right, at this point, we can recess the county board and convene as the county ditch authority.
How's everybody doing?
Good, Mac.
So, Mac,
Mac.
Meeker County Ditch Inspector. I'm looking to have you guys approve two projects on our county ditches, and they are both for maintenance. This would be, the first one is County Ditch 16. There's lots of erosion and washouts happening on this property, and I had a request for maintenance from the landowner. I went out there and did an inspection, and it is in really tough shape. I sent out to 4 contractors, 2 responded to me, and I received 2 quotes back. The quote that I would like to have you guys approve is for Brian Wheatrick Excavating for $18,840, and that would include incidental straightening, clean out, and some riprap installation, and a little bit of tree removal.
I always get nervous when I hear incidental straightening. But this is all within the right of way of the,
Yes, yep.
okay.
In fact, what's happening is the natural water is trying to get outside of the right of way, just because of sedimentation and islands forming, so. Yep.
And then second question, you said you spoke to the landowner. Is there only one benefited person on this, or is there several? And
There's, on this specific chunk that's outlined, that's his property there. But that's where all the work would be done, but the system is bigger than just that property.
And do we have a system to notify anyone who's going to be impacted with a bill when this is done?
I'm sure we would, right, Barb? Is there,
We never,
no?
We don't?
just send the bills in November.
Okay, so they're not,
Upon this approval would be their only notice.
So how do we determine that, I guess? So is it the amount of the project where you don't need to,
If we aren't required to have a public hearing, we don't notice.
does that go by the amount of money you're spending, or because, I'm just curious.
Project types,
The what?
project types sometimes. We haven't noticed, in the,
I mean, that's not a huge amount of money, but if you were spending more than that, I would think.
well, I wasn't thinking of a public meeting, Mr. Chair. I was more thinking, I always hate getting a surprise in my, oh,
Yeah.
gee.
I wasn't either, but yeah, I
So-
agree. So that's just our decision when we decide to work on a ditch, okay?
Another thing that, you got buffer strips there. The sediment, the spoils, what is the procedure when you get, can they get put on the buffer and
Yep, so I
blade it
talked,
out?
I talked to
What
this
are the rules?
talked to this landowner and specifically asked him, depending on when the job would get done, if we could place spoils in his. Cause that in my opinion, is ideal, cause then, I mean, the sediment came off his field to begin with. So it should be put back on, that way you don't have to do anything with the buffers, you might still have to.
Is it, I guess my question is more, is it legal to put the spoils on the buffer?
Yes, that's usually where we do it.
Okay,
Yep, we keep all our work done within the one rod length of 16.5 feet. And then we talk to landowners if we wanna go outside.
Outside that, sure. All right, I didn't know how the buffer
Yep.
guidelines fell into play there.
Any other questions? Barbara, can you just run that through just for us for reminding how that procedure goes if a landowner in this particular place is asking for the ditch to be done where it's within his land, but then everybody else has to pay part of it? I just wanna know how that procedure goes about, or like what our procedure is.
What our procedures?
Yeah,
So generally speaking, if it's a larger job, we bring the landowners in for an informational meeting. So sometimes you're involved with informational meetings and our legal guidance will tell us to do that, get people on board. Matt indicated this is maintenance, and so for maintenance, we generally do not do the informational meeting because you've already determined through Matt that that is a required project that needs to be done, and it's part of the requirements to maintain our systems. Do we notice? Not normally. One of the things we do is if we're impacting more than this landowner, we let them know that our contractors will be in the area as they're moving on so that they're aware that we could potentially use one of their approaches or ask them if we have to get outside of our specific right of way. So then we do notice. We do not normally send out this is what's happening on your system. And so when we bill in November, I often indicate to people that they need to follow the county board's approval process for systems, because it would be a huge cost to our system if we were notifying everyone every time we were doing work on the system. So mostly informational meetings, which we bring together sometimes also, as in the case of County 15, we had 3 or 4 or 5 of them, to let the landowners know our progress and what was happening and have them weigh in some of the decisions. But on this type of a job, we would not have done that.
So, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
So if everyone's benefiting the same on that, then they all get billed the same, is that?
They
and
will all
that's-
get billed.
And maintenance, that's kind of what it is. Everybody is billed the same.
Correct, on the maintenance set, yes. So if we're doing improvements, then that's another whole story, as improvements become issues where we're, impacting a lot of landowners, changing benefits, different things like that. Those have requirements even for public hearings to be done.
one more question then I'll let you go. So when a landowner identifies this part that needs maintenance, do you check the rest of the ditch in terms of saying if there is more maintenance that could need done, and then contacting those landowners? Since you're already there, chances are there could be more maintenance needed for the rest of that ditch.
Yep, so in this specific instance, I did look at the rest of the system also. But I'm obligated to for sure talk to the guy who asked me to come out and look
Yep.
at his specific property first. But I would, if I thought that the rest of it was needing major work, I would probably send out another bid for that separately. Otherwise, the price can get higher than what a person would like to see. Try to space it out a little bit, so.
Okay, cause just being from a landowner, if you saw someone working on their ditch and your land went through that too, and then you had seen, well, I could use some too.
Right.
You'd be kinda a little peeved off if you weren't approached either.
And Matt does have that requirement of viewing every system in the
Okay.
systematic pattern, and so he could either do this or put it in the systematic pattern of review.
Okay, that's my question, so.
Mr. Chair, I move to award a contract to, I don't know how to pronounce this name,
Weederich?
Woodrich?
Dietrich.
Okay, excavating for maintenance work on County Ditch 16 for an estimated total cost of $18,840.
Okay, motion by Beth, looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Julie. Any further discussion? Looking for the roll call.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein.
Yes. All right, moving on. Motion carries.
So the next one I wanna have approved would be for work on County Ditch 32. This is a job that our previous inspector, John, has been wanting to get done, and I sent it out for bid. And I sent it to 4 contractors, 2 responded, and this job would be 425 feet of cleaning, there in blue. And then a culvert needs to be placed right at the mouth there of Lake Washington. That culvert is rusting out and eventually in the next couple of years is probably gonna collapse and cause a major blockage to that system. And the contractor that, would be awarded the bid came in at $14,315. That is MSB Excavating.
Okay, any questions on that?
Is this, I was just wondering, is this an instance where a pipe would, you know, it's 400 feet from the highway down to the lake? Is that, I mean, I'm just,
Right. If your person looks at a topographical map, there is a little bit of slant coming in towards there and it's kind of wetlands on the side of it. I think I would have a big fiasco with the DNR
okay.
trying to fill that in. But, I mean, it would technically be an option, you know.
I just, with the houses and there, you know, I just thought longer term, but,
Yeah.
and not that much length of ditch, it might be a option, but.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
That is, it's just down the road from me, it's in my area, and I have, those folks have been concerned with that stretch for quite some time, so it's good that the culvert, I think that's gonna solve some issues.
Yep.
As well as prevent some future issues.
And the
Because-
plan would be to install a plastic pipe, that would last way longer than putting a steel or metal pipe back in, so, or culvert, I should say.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this has been a problem an issue that needed to be looked at for quite some time.
Yep.
It's kind of deceptive on the picture there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but, you say wetlands, it doesn't really look like wetlands to the right and to the left of that light blue line, but that is it's pretty significant there, yeah.
Gotcha. That's why you can't do anything underground, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it'd be
The
difficult.
watershed's too much for that, otherwise that'd be a great
Well,
option, I would think, if you had
Me,
houses.
myself, I'd put the pipe from the highway to the lake and then work on sediment control farther upstream, you know, I mean, whatever, but that's just a thought.
And there is a significant amount of sediment coming through there.
Yeah.
Usually is when you get close to the lake.
Yes, yep.
It's getting that volume.
All right, any other questions?
Mac, can I ask a question?
Yep.
Sure.
Is this a situation where you have to work with the DNR or any of those organizations?
I think what we did on that, the previous inspector had all that done for permitting. DNR wanted to make sure that we're not digging wider or deeper and affecting the water level of the lake. But a
Okay.
no loss permit has been given to the county to do the work. So everything on the permit level with the DNR and soil and water, all those guys, that's been done.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to award a contract to MSB Excavating for maintenance work on County Ditch 32 for an estimated total cost of $14,315.
Motion by Steve,
I will second that.
second by Paul. Any further discussion? We'll have the roll call.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein.
Yes. All right, with that said,
Thank you.
motion carries. Thanks, Mac. We'll now adjourn the County Ditch Authority and reconvene as County Board. With that, Andrew.
Yes, so this is a follow-up to the discussion that we had at our last work session. As you recall, we have a developer who's interested in building a 60-unit apartment building at the property that is at 415 South Ramsey Avenue. This parcel was originally purchased by the hospital using hospital funds for the potential expansion in the future. The hospital and the hospital board has determined that it's no longer needed for that, would be better served as housing for the community. Because the hospital is owned by the county, action to transfer the property would be required by the county board. And what we would do is transfer the property to the Meeker County EDA. EDA would then work with the developer on the purchase agreement and all the conditions associated with that. So with that, available for any questions. We do have a representative from our developer here and Lisa from the EDA as well, if you would like to direct to any of them.
Mr. Chair, let's get a motion on the floor. So I will move to approve resolution authorizing the conveyance of 415 South Ramsey Avenue, Litchfield.
All right, motion made by Paul, looking for a second.
Second,
Second by Beth. Now, any questions?
I have a couple questions. Sure, come on up. I haven't heard anything else since we decided we were gonna, where you are, if you have any information, what's going on with city planning and zoning, or where you are with the project, if you have some information.
Hi, my name is Ted Schmidt. I'm one of the representatives for this Litchfield project. We've got a lot completed since our last meeting. We have our PUD application in with all attachments to go with that. We have a certificate of survey done on the property. We've filed, or we're in the process of filing, we've created a name. Where it could be called Litchfield Midtown Flats. And so we'll have Midtown Flats will be the big signage on it. And we have our TIP application put in. And so we have our first financial commitment letter on the project at this point from a lender. That's also included in the attachment. So we've been very active this last 2 weeks.
Good, so you're pretty positive about?
Oh, yes.
You-
We wouldn't have been this far.
That probably wasn't the right word, but nothing's come up that we weren't aware of.
No, I have one further question, and it's just to understand, we have the sewer and water map around the sites. We have capacity for that. And my next thing I'm gonna follow up on, I drove around the site again today.
I do every day I go by.
And I just wanna make sure that where the power is gonna be adequate supply. We think there's gonna be a new requirement of us, and that is there's gonna be a significant higher amount of electric charging vehicle stations that are gonna be required if it passes. So that is going to change the transformer size of a typical 60 unit is gonna probably be closer to what you'd see on a 100 unit apartment that we've done in the past. And I just wanna make sure we have that capacity. If we don't, how far do we have? The hospital's a block away or half a block away, so we know it's close, it's just,
So is that in a statute now that you have to provide?
it's a proposed statute, it's not passed yet, but the language is now out there for us to understand, so I just wanna be prepared. And not be surprised later if we know going in is different than after the fact and we have a delay. Transformers for apartment buildings in the past 2 years are taking on average from the time you order to the time it actually gets to the site is 16 months.
Oh.
So it takes longer to get our power transformer than it does to build the building. So you gotta order this
Right away.
really early into the process, so that is the latest thing I've been looking at, and I just thought of that this morning when I was driving around.
I have a question. I'm curious. Yes, the voice from above here. I'm curious. When would you start building, and when do you hope to have this open for folks to apply for an apartment?
One of our funding sources, Lisa can speak a little bit better to this, Grappentine, is a grant fund, and that gets selected. Lisa, help me with this.
Okay, yeah, so the Minnesota Housing Workforce Grant is one of the sources that we're looking at for the project. They are expecting to do awards in August, so that is not the guaranteed date. So if the state does the announcements in August, gets grant agreements out shortly after, that will allow the developers to still have time to start this fall. If however the state delays anything with announcements and getting those grant agreements in place, that could put the developers in a position that they would have to weigh, do we start and have winter construction costs are not ideal for any type of project. So they'll have to analyze once the state makes that announcement, what that means then for a start date. So I think the goal is we all want, this late fall. But it will be dependent on the state's announcement, because that's a pretty sizable grant award that we wanna see about first.
Thank you.
Then the second, answer to your question is time frame. If we can get the foundation in before winter freeze up, it normally takes us about, 12 months from time of foundation going into time of completion. If we have to push it, if it becomes, we don't get these funds till November, December, we'll do some prep work so that we can do a spring start, and hopefully pushing dirt in March of, 2025. And then it'd be a spring opening then of 2026.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Going back to that electrical, would you be able to start even though a transformer is 16 months out and switch out transformers after it arrives, or?
That's a really good question. We can typically, for construction purposes, have a temporary transformer. We have not been able to, in the past, get our state elevator passed without having a permanent transformer there. That's a big, for the elevator system, that's kind of a big deal, that and having phone and internet available for the call center, for the elevator, so it's a detail, and that's one of those details that, you wouldn't think that holds up the whole show, but that will hold up the whole certificate of occupancy process if we don't have internet, don't have dedicated phone line, and, permanent power is what we found, so. We can do part of it, can't do all of it.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Now, if I understand this right, this property, you're just managing this property, right? For me, with EDA? I mean, we're turning it over.
Yes.
I've never quite understood the marriage between this.
Lisa, do you wanna walk us
Yeah.
through, if we approve this, what's the next process
Yeah.
and how does that go before they get to actually start working on it?
Good question. So the process would be is that the land would be conveyed to the EDA, and then the EDA would have to go through the process identified in state statute regarding public hearing and such for us to then be able to enter into a purchase agreement or purchase offer with the developers. That agreement, the land will not be conveyed to the developers until they have the grant and such in hand to know that the project is going forward. So it's basically sits out there. They have to prove that they have site control. A purchase agreement can count as site control for them for the grant. So then they'll go through the grant application process. Once that is awarded, then we would convey the land to the developers prior to them starting on the project. So
And
the
if
land
that-
does not actually go to them
Okay.
until
And if
the
that,
grant is awarded. then we
haven't,
start.
I hate to say, but if it didn't work out, then it would go back to the hospital or the county.
We would talk about that at the time,
Because
right,
this is,
to
the reason
decide
I'm
what to
asking,
do.
Mr. Chair, is this is the second time we've done this. I'm just,
Right, so if
so we
anything would
decide,
happen.
not necessarily, that isn't necessarily what we're.
So as we did the last time, if you recall, when that project didn't move forward, the EDA then conveyed the property
Right.
back to the county. I think if this project was to fall through and didn't go forward, I think we'd wanna have a broader discussion about
Okay.
what do we wanna do with this, rather
That
than
makes-
just
yeah,
automatically.
That makes
transfer
sense
it
to
back.
me, thank you.
And I can safely say from my conversations around town that, the new Midtown flats are creating a little excitement and
I would agree.
dissipation.
Yep.
So,
So if there was any flack, so to speak, that the public would have their chance at the public hearing for the EDA to voice their concerns if they're neighbors or something, saying the density of the areas, you know, the buildings big
Yes.
compared to my house. That's when they would have their time to speak about that, correct?
Correct, and it's probably more probable that they would take that opportunity during the city's planning and zoning
Right,
process.
that's-
Yep.
Because that would be when they would be, you know, again, we do have requirements, it will be put in the paper for the public hearing that the EDA has on the land aspect of it. But there'll be more additional notification that's done as part of the city planning and zoning process, so I think that's where those conversations will more likely occur.
Yep, that's what I was trying to get at, is where the process is, because you don't wanna get too far ahead, because the public has their chance to go about this thing, even though it's, 15 times more than what, we originally did for a number of people we'd be affecting. 4 houses versus 60. So, and the first time we do this. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
You have a motion on the floor.
Oh, sorry. There is a motion, and any further discussion? Otherwise, we'll go for the roll call.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein.
Yes. That said, the resolution passes.
Good luck.
Good luck.
And we're working hard on it.
I know you are. Appreciate it.
Didn't matter if that's a resolution or not, as long as it's a roll call, right? Andrew? Okay. Okay, moving on, administrators report.
Yeah, I have a few things for you today. First and foremost, I attended the Prime Health Board meeting, where they provided an update for the end of 2023 and some interesting information I thought I would share. First off, the pool ended 2023 in a really positive place. The total medical loss ratio, which is the amount that is spent versus the amount that comes in premiums, was 81.6%. So anything that's below 100% means that we received more premiums than we did expenses. The target for the pool is 85%, so it was a little bit under the target. With that, the total members' equity has increased to $3.9 million, which is a really positive place to be. One of the things that was noted, though, was that 14% of the members who are on single plans spent $0 out of their plans last year, which means they aren't taking advantage of the preventative services that are offered at no cost to those individuals. So Prime Health staff is going to be working to develop marketing materials that HR staff through the different members are going to be able to send out to remind people to do their preventative visits and take care of that. We certainly want people to do preventative because then it prevents us from having those higher expenses down the road.
A question on that, Andrew. Does McKell put out a memo that what preventive is covered by Prime Health? So
Yeah, it's all part of the open enrollment process. Prime Health actually comes out and does a presentation as part of that. Prime Health does, as well as Pete come out, and our brokers come out to talk about the different services that are provided.
But is it actually in a written memo too? Because sometimes if it's another speaker, people are just.
It's all included in the plan materials
Okay.
that people get at open enrollment. Yep.
Right.
But I think that's a good thing to include in that marketing is we want to remind people what their options are and what the benefits are that they get. Because I think especially people who are relatively new to the workforce and haven't had health insurance before don't really know how it operates and what to do and how to work. And so helping people through that process initially is important. We also had a discussion regarding the use of that cash surplus that the pool has. The Prime Health staff surveyed the member HR directors, and only 1 out of the 9 said that the money should be used for further wellness programming. So the pool board then focused discussion more on using the reserves to moderate future rate adjustments. So rather than putting money into some sort of a wellness program, we're going to instead of doing maybe a 5% increase down the road, it'll be a 4% increase. So, that's all I have on Prime Health, unless you have any questions. All right, shifting gears, a couple of construction updates. The remodel continues to move forward. Progress in Area B, which is the south side of the Family Services Building, is ongoing, with demolition scheduled to be completed this week. They're going to start framing next week. We did have to remove some more asbestos in the new boardroom. Our hope was, and in the hallway near Woodland Centers, our hope was when they peeled up the carpeting and found the asbestos tile under there, that we'd be able to just, seal it under new flooring. But as they peeled, so did the asbestos tile. So it needed to be fully abated, unfortunately.
Did you just leave it under the county attorney's area?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh.
We will see.
No, I mean just where she will be sitting.
Just that one desk. Leave it exposed.
I think the public would always appreciate that, paying for county attorneys.
We are having some furniture discussions for that area this and next week, including included in that will be the replacement of the dais chairs, but the gallery chairs we're going to plan to reuse over at the new building. We also had speaking of the boardroom, we had our acoustical consultant complete their work, and they're recommending the installation of some additional paneling throughout the building, not the building, throughout that room. And what they have said is that should significantly improve the echo that's in there, going from what I think the technical term said was terrible to just above ideal. So
That sounds
technical.
yeah.
better than bearable, just above ideal.
So,
I actually understand.
so that isn't gonna affect the look of the room though, right?
We're not going to cover up the murals that are in there, but you'll see more of those, those kind of the whitish tan panels that are on the wall right now. You'll see more of those in that upper area. We are still on target for construction in that phase to be complete in May. And then the new entrance for this building here is on target to begin in mid-April unless this weekend's Snowmageddon really gets out of hand. So, but it have to really get out of hand. Speaking of this building, the roofers have been on site the last couple of weeks and expect to be done with the roof work by the end of next week. But of course, that's weather dependent, and with the weather that we're getting, it might get pushed into the week after that. But that project is rapidly coming to a close.
The odor is giving me a headache.
Yes.
How do you guys live with this? It's
Let it go, let it go, don't say anything.
You,
but not bad.
we've worked through several issues regarding the odor, and overall, I think we're in a good. When they left and came back, we haven't gotten nearly the complaints that we got the first time.
Probably get used to it.
Predictable now.
Oh, I can see the smirk on your face.
Because I got some emails while we were sitting here, I just want to give you a reminder to complete your know before training.
I just did mine.
Yeah, I know. What's that? I think we're almost done with the administrator's report.
We are. I have nothing for a work session for next week, so if the board is satisfied with that, I would like to cancel that meeting. And instead, I would like to go on vacation. So that's my plan. So, that concludes my report.
Mr. Chair, may I ask you? We had you sent us all an email about the attempted intrusion.
Yes.
And that got completely mitigated and
Yes.
we're 100%.
Yes. And what was really fortunate there was a couple of things. First, CISA, which is our federal partner for cybersecurity, was able to notify us that, as a client of this company, you may have a vulnerability. Rob saw that notification and acted quickly to remove that server from our network. And then, working with MCIT, who are really good partners on this, they got us connected with a cybersecurity forensics team, a firm who does that work. And they did kind of an initial check, found that there were admin credentials that were created that were, not supposed to be there. And then they did a deeper dive into our systems and found that nothing else had happened. That was the only thing that had occurred. So that quick work that Rob did was a big reason why we didn't have a bigger issue.
Did the forensic team make us any additional recommendations or anything?
No,
Or
they
said
did
we
not.
were stout, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And as I said in my email to the board, that's kind of the point where our new CrowdStrike software is really beneficial in that once something gets installed on the network, then we would get notified. Rob would get a phone call saying, hey, it's 2 a.m. and someone installed something that doesn't seem right. You may want to check it out. So, and then what you approved today, the multi-factor authentication to get into our VPN is going to be just one more step to help provide further protection, because VPN is an avenue into the network.
So we all won't have the two-factor.
We all
multi-factor.
have the two.
Okay, so even ours right here.
If you are using the VPN to connect into the network, so if you are not doing that, so typically if you're just on email, you are not using VPN to connect into the network. But if you're going on to get onto the file server, or if you're going on to there's certain software that we use that is hosted on our network, that's what you need the VPN to connect into. The email exchange, you don't need to be. So now, at some point, there's going to be a two-factor authentication to get into email as well.
Yeah.
So whether it's through the fobs that some folks have right now, that's not the option that we're going to go with across the board. It may be in-app, it may be Rob will provide more information about exactly how we do it once we get into that implementation.
Because I do think even though we don't get in the files, I use some of our programs like Beacon, and so forth, and I think that, you know,
Yeah, but that's not, you're not connected into the network when you're doing it. You're using the public facing side of
Okay.
it. So,
okay, thank you.
All right, any more questions for Andrew? Otherwise, we'll move on to committee updates. All right, starting off, Beth, you wanna start off today?
Oh, okay. I was looking at something else. Well, we had Prime West. Let's see, they're doing well as always. We didn't have a finance meeting because getting all their entity things together and stuff, so. We gave a $140,000 grant to Northern Dental in Hubbard County to try to get some more access for dental. We have not enough access for Prime West customers for dental. It's been an issue forever. If any of you can have a local dentist you'd like to speak to, it'd be appreciated. I know people that are driving all the way to Buffalo and waiting 3 months to get an appointment, and I mean, so it's important, so. The Karma bill is moving along very well, very happy with the results. We may get some pushback from the HMOs down the line here, they're kind of expecting that, but, what else do we have? We had, I'll just put this, and I'm sure Paul's got some things to add. Our doctor that's, works for Prime West had some interesting things, facts about, rural health in Minnesota. One of which really stuck out to me was the average age of a provider in rural Minnesota where we are is, what, 59? So when you talk about recruiting doctors, it's getting tougher out here. People no longer want to be family physicians. They want to do a specialty where the big money is dermatology or whatever and work Monday through, 5 days a week. So we're fortunate to have Centric Care helping us in that, and I just thought it was interesting. Also, when you talk about people not doing their free healthcare, we're still finding a problem with baby well checks and things like that that started with COVID, and they're not improving as fast as Prime West would like to see. They have a lot of data, and so they're sending out and advertising about that, and so hopefully it'll improve. I had an exec board meeting at the hospital. I think we talked mostly about that stuff right here today. We're starting a new payroll program. We talked a little bit about being able to do robotic surgery in the future here. That's probably gonna be in the, I don't know how soon a future. And we're gonna start talking about the clinic. Mary Ellen has a list of goals that she's put down, very good ones. So we'll start talking about the new clinic and stuff again also. I had a Central Minnesota Jobs and Training meeting. Thank you for giving that to me, Steve. Nothing ever happened.
My pleasure.
So, we had our election of officers. As you know, they've had some issues going on financially. They're in a better spot. They're catching up. They're still, they're able to meet all their payrolls. There's some training going on for, members. And there's gonna be some unrestricted dollars with, deed grants. So that was about what I took out of there. And I think that's all I have. Unless I
All right.
forgot something. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. We'll move on to Julie. Any updates in Florida?
Hey, I've got my notes here. Okay, looking at the calendar. On Friday, the 15th, Paul and I had a personnel meeting that went very well. And then yesterday, I had the University of Minnesota Extension Farm Family of the Year Committee meeting. That was fun, but of course I'm going to keep all of you in suspense until a later date as to the results of that. And then today, of course, we have our regular meeting, and tomorrow morning, let's see, tomorrow now is the 20th, I will have the local public health meeting. And then on Tuesday, was it decided, Andrew, that we're canceling the work session?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll make note of that. And that'll bring us just about to the end of March. Gracious. I was curious if there was any update on the Super America property. I should have maybe asked when Andrew was giving his notes, but has there been any more conversation about that?
I finally got a call back from our potential partner there yesterday, and they're gonna take a look at it.
Oh, thank you.
All right,
That's my report. Thank you.
all right, thank you, Julie. Moving on.
Yep.
Paul?
Well, Prime West is best said. I only had one thing that I thought was unique, and Steve, you may know more about this than we did. When Dr. Hegstad talked about the new technology going into the vehicles, and of course, you know, it's gonna be the ones that are closer. They could, it's some type of a portable laptop. They can actually either put it on the person or have their hand on it. It gives them the amount of oxygen
Oh,
in
it
their
was an
blood.
iPad thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Have you heard about that?
Not every,
heard
not-
about it.
I think this
Yeah.
talk was about, is everybody gonna be able to use them, right? The
Right.
training that's involved. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And my point to him was, well, that's right. Okay. Once again, rural health, and I'm gonna use Cosmos as an example because they have a volunteer emergency services, won't be available to them because they're basic life support. So,
it's only ALS.
yeah, because the
Advanced-
doctor
I'm
can
sorry,
actually,
advanced life support.
yeah, can actually communicate with them and have them start a tracheotomy or have them, you know, there's so many more things they can do. But the sad thing is once again, the ones that are the farthest time-wise away from the hospitals aren't gonna have some of the new technology. And he did agree, yes, that's true. It's just kind of unfortunate that.
How much do you
Well-
do now, Steve? I mean,
Well, we're just first, like, I'm just first responder
Right.
certified, and then you got EMT, and then you got paramedic, so I mean,
EMT.
but even like Watkins Ambulance is a basic life support unit. So, but I'm, the first thing that comes to mind is our county, community paramedic program.
Yeah.
I would say I'm guessing, I'm just guessing here, but I would say EMTs. And he's a paramedic, so I mean, paramedics for sure
the
sound
training.
like they would have that access.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they can make this, we can't do a trade, well, there's things we can't physically do, even if we know that, I mean, we're not
You're not allowed
qualified
to
to
do.
do it. So that's why it won't be allowed to farther down the chain, because we can't do it anyway.
Right.
So, the community paramedic program is something that, I think is gonna grow. There's been more and more talk about that at state level, and once again, we've been fortunate to have it for a few years now.
Mary Ellen has that on her list too, the community we have the one, but maybe we need another one, or maybe
Yeah.
we partner and help pay for some of it or something,
Yeah.
because it's important.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge in what we do.
Right.
At grassroots level.
Right.
The EMT field.
And I think, Beth, you brought that up at Prime West and said that we had the community paramedic, and we were one of the very few.
Yeah, it's
I think
not
Brian
common.
went ahead and did that, and I hear a lot of great things about her.
Yeah.
community.
Probably 3 years now already.
We've had the program in a partnership with Hennepin
Hennepin.
from,
Prior.
it's probably 5 years
Yep.
doing that. He's been an employee here for 2,
Yeah.
probably.
But when we partnered, we only had that part-time.
It was part-time, yes. It's been full-time for probably 2 years.
Yep.
But we were one of the few, and we kind of were, we were very proud of that.
It's not,
because
it's not
Absolutely.
They
common.
just,
It's
they
not
really
common,
bragged
no.
up that particular program.
Absolutely.
I brought it up in the public safety policy. If you guys haven't looked into this program, look into it, you know. So it's a good program.
Then I had a one watershed meeting, and that was to approve our plan. It has now been submitted to Bowser, and there will be a presentation made in the last week of the month to Bowser, which they were at the meeting. We fully anticipate their approval. We had contracted with Rinky Noonan to create our legal documents, and they are being drafted. And the preliminary will be out to the county attorneys in April, which they will go through it. And if it's all in order as it should be, then we will be asked to sign on to that particular agreement. So that's forthcoming. Then I had a smell feed later that day. I won't go into that though. That was pretty good too. Last Tuesday, of course, was Township Election Day. I made a little route around the ones that I could get to. I got to Acton, Cedar Mills Township, Cosmos Township, very briefly at Ellsworth, and then finished up in Collinwood. And had some really good discussions. It was very nice. You know, they're not overly attended by the locals, but nonetheless, the ones who were there asked some very, very valid questions, and I thought it was worth my time to have gone to those. Then we had two meetings on Wednesday, one of which Beth didn't want to talk about, but that's all right. CCT, where
And have the
we,
notes, that's why. Sorry.
we were, they decertified their union, so they are no longer represented by union. And we needed to take care of our pay scale, and we created a new pay scale, which is going to significantly increase driver pay. We're hoping that, along with some other things, is going to drive the ability to hire. The pay scale brought a starting wage to $20.10. So we crossed the $20 barrier with that, and we really believe that's going to, and it's a 15-step scale, so that when you're hired, you can look at 15 steps, you know where you're gonna be. 5 years from now, you're gonna be step 4, because you start in step A if you have no experience. So that's a good thing. It should take away some of the ambiguity between the employees, because, well, you're getting this and I'm getting this, and et cetera. So that was good. Then I went on to a PAC meeting. It was our annual meeting. Here's a new magazine, the first edition of the magazine. And it really does work so many things about young people. Self-care activities for kids of all ages. Legal does not mean okay. Strategic instruction opens doors to learning for your child. So it's really a family-type magazine. It's being distributed throughout our 5 counties, and it goes to the schools and all over, and it's available for them. We were able to pay for the entire magazine with the sale of ads to vendors, and so it was a cost-neutral magazine. We think it will be very good for families. Where to put that? We ended the year in PAC. We have a total liabilities and fund balance of $2,038,000. We have current investments of about 1.5 million, but they all have to be staggered because we have this is money that is designated, but it's not going to get encumbered or it's encumbered but not actually sent to the recipients until later in the year. So we're going to grab the interest on it until then. But a real good feeling of where we are financially, because we're like everybody else. You get down to that close to that zero, you start getting nervous. Yeah, we did have a personnel meeting last Friday, and yesterday I had an executive meeting for CPT. And nothing really new there. We are looking at taking on one more customer for hosting. It would increase our annual revenue initially by about $5,000 a year, but the potential for them to use some of our products is where we would grow if we get that opportunity. This Friday, Lamp Bingo. It's a full house. It's a great place to come and show your face, and especially if you were running for something.
Are you done?
Yes.
That's an interesting conclusion.
Had to lead in there.
Yeah,
I went right off the cliff. I was
Smooth
like,
segue, we'll go right into Steve.
all right, well, thanks, Paul. Couple things, we already talked about the apartment building. I was gonna talk about that through EDA. We had EDA last Thursday. And, another thing that the public hearing that EDA will have is tentatively scheduled for April, so if all the pieces continue to fall in line, we tentatively set that date for April 17th at 5 PM. And that will be in the community room, I believe, is that
Yep.
right, Danny?
Yep.
If I remember right. And other things from EDA, the Grove City currently has a opening on the board. A representative from the Grove City area we're looking for to join the EDA board. And also Chuck Litzow out of Cosmos will be retiring in June, so there'll be an opening in the Cosmos area too. So if you know somebody down in that area, there's a couple of positions that we can fill, one now and one in the future here, near future. Other than that, it's been relatively quiet. And next week I'll have Emergency Services Board, and I think we have the probation meeting on the 21st coming up, and then AMC leadership on the 28th and 29th. So next week's got a little busier schedule, but other than that, I do wanna mention, today at Eden Valley, Jim Rademacher passed away. He was about a 40-year veteran of the fire department up there. Also, he was city, maintenance supervisor for 25 years. Julie, his daughter, worked over in the sheriff's office as a secretary to the sheriff for quite a few years. His other daughter, Janelle, worked in dispatch here and worked in dispatch up in Stearns County. And his son Justin was on Eden Valley Fire, and now he's on Watkins Fire as he relocated here a couple of years ago. So just a big loss up in that neck of the woods on that funeral here a little later this morning. So very, very good family there, the Rademachers from Eden Valley. So thank him for his many years of service.
All right. Thanks, Steve. I also had the EDA meeting with Steve, and I think he pretty much touched on all the big points there. And then I think we have a Woodlands meeting coming up this week. And then another couple things to note, there's a Boys and Girls County scheduled for April 16th. Let everybody know that. And also the big news of Meeker is with Dean Erdahl announcing his retirement. We'd like to thank him for his 22 years of service and wish him well in his next phase of life. With that said, I'd like to adjourn.
Can I get one question?
Yes, sir.
Got to ask.
Yep.
I got another call about solid waste. Can you catch us up on what we're doing out there to address this?
Yeah, so, are you looking at the cleanliness of the site, is that
Well,
the
I mean,
question?
what are we, yeah.
Or
where
are you
we
looking at
with
the
anything?
overall
What's our
operation of the
next
site?
phase of that?
Are we getting it cleaned up? Is the sign getting, I mean, we
Yes.
should do better than a plastic sign over a sign, I'm just saying.
I agree with that. So, so yes, the concerns that you shared with me, I shared with Greg as well. And
Okay.
so, and then kind of the broader operation, I think we're still waiting to see if we had an individual reach out again and potentially express interest in the site. And so we're waiting to see how that plays out before we, further move to bring the full services in-house. And if we were to bring the full services in-house, it puts more manpower out there to allow us to stay on top of some of this stuff.
So the lease that we have with who?
Endurance.
So do we communicate with them about
Yep.
the issues and
Oh, yes.
is someone following up because it seemed, and they're just not doing it?
Well, part of it's that, part of it is just the nature of the sites, right? Things blow off the pile or it's tough to stay on top of it, and so it's one of the challenges.
All right. Thank you.
All right. With anything else? Otherwise, we adjourn for the second time.
Sorry, thanks.